watched much less anime this year than I normally do. And I know it's not because I enjoy anime any less, but rather, I think it's because since anime has become so obtainable here in the West, that as time goes on, we're kind of spoiled for choice. Long gone are the days of only having Adult Swim and niche sci-fi channel specials as our only source of Japanimation entertainment. And honestly, with that, a lot of anime doesn't really feel special to me anymore. Kinda just feels like watching TV at this point. So I kinda had to ask myself, where does Chainsawman fit into that cornucopia of saddening reality I found out about anime within myself? Well, to tell you that, I first have to tell you about an anime called No Guns Life. It debuted about 3 years ago and was, I'm not exaggerating, one of the greatest anime I'd ever seen. In fact, one of the very few perfect 10 out of 10 animes I've ever rated, and I've seen almost 400 anime. And that being said, when you have an anime that's about a man whose head is turned into a gun with a depressing past, and then nearly immediately after there's a manga about a guy whose head is turned into a chainsaw and he becomes a weapon with a depressing past, it looks on the surface like this is literally just a ripoff and trying to capitalize on a sort of niche market that's being carved out. Thankfully, I can say that is where the similarities begin and end with Chainsaw Man. So welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and today we're going to review Chainsaw Man. So if you watched my review of Bleach 1000 Year Blood War, I'm going to be doing this review a little bit differently. And if you have not watched my review of Bleach 1000 Year Blood War, after this, please go watch that. So rather than giving a synopsis of the story itself like I did with Bleach, and then giving my critiques as I explain the story, I thought for Chainsaw Man, it would be better to break it up into categories. Starting with characters, moving on to the writing, after that animation and design, followed by music, and then I'm going to round out with just the story itself. So, 5 categories, all in all, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and before I go any further, I will say this will probably have minimal spoilers. Keep that in mind as we start off with the characters. So the reason I want to start off with the characters first is because I actually watched this 2 different ways. I watched both the Japanese dub with subtitles and the English dub. And since the English dub is 2 weeks behind, I have not technically finished the English dub version. That being said, since I finished the Japanese version, and I've seen almost all the English version, I think it's fair to say I know enough about both versions that I can have my opinion. And the reason it matters is because I found that with the characters, my enjoyment of the show honestly was radically different in certain areas depending on the version I was watching. Yeah, unlike most anime, this is not a case of, oh, the sub is inherently better, or, oh, the dub is just so awful, never watch it. Like, no, there's actually some pretty notable differences, at least in my viewing experience. So with that, we'll start with our main character, Denji. So if you've watched any number of anime before, you're gonna be pretty familiar with this character archetype. He's a simpleton with a sad backstory who wants more out of the world. Namely, in this case, food and titties. Yeah, it's that simple. Give him food and titties and he's happy. Now look, a simple character is not a bad thing. Goku is a simple character. Luffy is a simple character. Freaking Ash Ketchum is a simple character. But what sets them apart is that all their goals are so grandiose that they warrant being followed through in a medium like anime. One wants to be the strongest, most capable fighter in all the multiverse, and he's constantly looking for the next big challenge, the next strong person that might be able to beat him so that he knows he has limits to overcome. The other wants to become the king of the pirates and find the world's greatest, most extravagant hidden treasure that's never been found before. One of them wants to prove that he is the best in Michael Vick-esque animal fighting competitions. When it's put like that, okay, Denji's kinda. Anyway, the point is, they're all a bit more impressive goals than just getting laid. Which, yeah, I know, that sounds funny. And it is at first. But the funny wears off after 2 or 3 episodes. And there's 12 in this first season alone. Look, I will take Naruto claiming,
and my future dream is to be the greatest Hokage!
Every other episode, rather than hearing Denji's juvenile life goal that we all had when we were 12 years old. That's really what his goal is. Kill enough bad guys to get his boss to play with his pee-pee. Now, the actors themselves, both in the English and the Japanese dub, They do great. As dumb as I think this character's goal is, the actors do a fantastic job at selling me on that goal, selling me on believing the character is trying to attain this goal. So yes, while I'm not exactly a big fan of the character of Denji, I'm not gonna slight the actors one way or another. They are giving it 100% their all. Which I cannot say about the next individual. Let's go ahead and talk about Power. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Deranged female character who gets off to murder. Yeah, seriously, the only thing missing from this archetype is pink hair. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I hate this character in the Japanese dub. I love this character in the English dub. So yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier when I said my enjoyment of certain aspects varied wildly depending on the version I was watching. When you're watching her in Japanese, she doesn't really stick out. She seems like the same generic archetype we've seen of the strong murderous girl over and over. Even the actress's performance is average. I mean, I guess the line delivery is fine, but again, it doesn't stick out. But you watch it in English, and that voice actress, she is having a blast with this role. You can hear it in her performance.
Foul vegetables! Be gone!
I'm the type who seldom chooses to bathe. Humans are so delicate. Far too obsessed with remaining clean. Aren't they, meowie wowie?
So I looked this voice actress up, and there was only one thing I recognized right out the gate. She was the voice of Zeno in Dragon Ball Super. Another role that you could tell when listening to that she's just having a ball with. Yeah, apparently she just loves going over the top. The best way I can describe her performance is almost Bruce Campbell-esque. Sarah Windenfeld, that's the actress's name, dials everything up to 11. And this takes an otherwise unremarkable performance from a pretty generic archetypal character to something that I could listen to any day, all day. So Power is hundreds of years old. Because of this, she speaks in a very archaic English way. Lots of these and thous. So the actress, again, Sarah Windenfeld, I want to make sure to give her credit because she's great. She speaks in this almost Shakespearean way. If a fourth grader was reading Shakespeare, because the character is also so dumb. It's honestly not often when an English dub actor takes a character that I hate and completely redefines them for me when I watch them in my own native language. I mean, I genuinely thought my mind had been made up after experiencing Power in Japanese, and it completely flipped the script on me. That's awesome. So, after Power, we have Aki, who is easily my favorite character. He is the leader of the main trio, and as such plays the straight man to Denji's loose cannon. It's honestly the very typical buddy cop scenario. I mean, we see this dichotomy in Lethal Weapon, Hot Fuzz, Rush Hour, and it's a trope for a reason. It's great, and it works if you do it well. I will 100% acknowledge Chainsaw Man does this well. Aki is lonely and driven and arguably obsessed, and he's cold and mysterious, but you know that deep down he's got that kind of soft heart. He's the sort of stoic mystery man that is the perfect yin to Denji's yang. And as the show goes on, despite my many criticisms of it, because trust me, they will come, Denji and Aki's relationship is not one of them. From the moment that they are on screen together, when they meet, and Denji is kicking him in the balls after Aki is honestly unnecessarily a bit of a dick to him, to the final episode where Aki and Denji then join together to kick that season's big bad evil guy in the dick over and over. It is a perfect come full circle moment, and I did really appreciate it. Chainsaw Man at least knows how to write a buddy cop relationship. And finally, we have Miss Makima. She is the absolute weak point of the show when it comes to the characters. She's supposed to be like mysterious and calculating, you know, unsure if you can trust her. She always seems to be 2 steps ahead, but if that's the case, why do all her men keep dying? The stereotypical femme fatale, quick to manipulate and easy for our heroes to trust. A capable leader, but hiding something. And this fails so hard. Look, I didn't read the manga, but after about 4 episodes, I had my suspicions about something. And after about 8 episodes, I decided to ask a friend who did read the manga if I was correct in my suspicions. And yeah, I was. And it's actually a pretty massive story twist for far later, so I'm not going to say what my suspicions are. But the issue then becomes, If me, who has never read the manga, so I'm just now a casual viewer of this story, and I can already pick up on such a major twist way down the line after 4 episodes, well, that's just poorly writing a character. At this point, it's not even about the acting, it's about the writing. No matter how good or bad the actress did, it's written in such a way that I would have seen this coming regardless of the skill level of the acting in question. I guess the actress does fine, but it's so hard to look at that and come up with a basis for comparison when I know everything I need to know already, regardless of the acting. It kind of sucks. Miss Makima is just horribly written in this show. I assume it's probably the same in the manga as well, or it could be a case of the studio just butchering this. I don't know. Since I ended the character portion by talking about the specific writing of a character, let's just move on to writing as a whole. Maybe I've just become jaded and spoiled after seeing almost 400 anime. Maybe I'm just hard to please, but I don't really think that's the case. I love good writing. I praise it when I see it. I recently sucked the dick of an anime called Bokurano, as well as No Gun's Life earlier in the video, and that anime is only like 3 years old. But honestly, this show just isn't written very well. I mean, it starts off interestingly enough. You've got this poor kid, he's down on his luck, his dad left him in debt to the Yakuza, he sold his eye, his left nut, and like his liver, if I remember right, just to try and pay off his debts. And he's still ridiculously in debt, so he's taking on odd jobs of killing these monsters to pay it back, which he's getting paid effectively pennies for. It is a really interesting and effective way to get us invested in our main character from the get-go. But literally from the moment he gets his powers and joins his new family, all that interesting stuff kind of goes out the window and is replaced by him wanting to cop a feel. There's minimal character development for anyone in the series, minus what I mentioned before about Denji and Aki's budding friendship. And again, like I said before, I will give credit there. But even the world building is non-existent. There's one really cool episode, I believe it's episode 5, where it talks about the Gun Devil and the effect he's had on the world, and how an event which is explained to be very similar to 9/11, I don't know if it's an allusion to 9/11 or if it just happened to be similar by coincidence, but either way, a terrorist event sparks fear of guns and much more gun violence, giving the Gun Devil power, and it builds the world. It really shows you fear of guns was on the rise. It gave the Gun Devil more power. Why was fear of guns on the rise? Because of this terrorist event that led to more gun violence. Like, it really opened the door in a way that I thought was brilliant when it comes to world building. That's also the only bit of world building in all 12 episodes, is in this one exposition scene in one episode of the show. But in this one episode, they laid the groundwork for how the influence of demons affects the day-to-day lives of the people and what life is like. I wish they could have done that for the entire show. But have humans always just accepted they live in a world of devils and monsters? Who fucking cares? More fight scenes with lots of blood. What causes certain devils to be sympathetic enough to humans to make contracts with them and effectively turn on their own kind and help them hunt them? Doesn't matter. More sex jokes. Why is the Chainsawman one of the most feared devils when there is literally an infinity devil, which is a far more common and existential fear in humans than chainsaws? Don't ask questions, just consume product. It's just infuriating that this world does have so much potential for a story that can analyze fear, delve into the philosophical repercussions of letting fear consume you, and the ideologies behind mass hysteria. But the show does nothing with it. Look, does every show need to be some groundbreaking, deep philosophical show about these sorts of questions that have haunted humanity since we became aware of ourselves through evolution outside of nature? No, of course not. My freaking favorite anime of all time is Dragon Ball Z. Not exactly the deepest, most thought-provoking anime of all time. But when you create a world and a piece of art that does open those doors to those sorts of questions, and does bring forth those innately dark and interesting concepts, and then you ignore it all because you want to write sex jokes and teenagers that swear all the time, that is so much more than just a missed opportunity. It literally leaves the audience with questions about how the world even works. Like, don't get me wrong, I do have some sort of idea about how the rules in this world work and what the boundaries are and whatnot, but I don't get those from the show. I got those from asking a friend who loves the manga and has done a bunch of research and gotten into the nitty-gritty of it. Those aren't things that the show gave us, and therefore it is a failure at the writing in the show. What are the rules of this world? What is the backstory of this world? How do these things coexist? It's writing 101. Without this, you don't have a world you've built. You just have a collection of set pieces that the characters have to get to for the next big battle so we can turn our brains off and watch the explosions. On top of that, the pacing is just weird. Like, despite the flat characters and lack of world building, it does start off with some pretty solid pacing. Events unfolded at brisk but easy to digest speed. Denji gets his powers, he's taken in by public safety, he has to learn to become effectively an obedient lapdog, but if he does do everything that he's told, then hey, he gets food and the chance to smash his boss. He goes out on missions, killing devils with his new team, and there's even a really good mini arc where he, Aki, Power, and new additions to the team, at least new to us the viewer, have to infiltrate this hotel, but they all get stuck on the 8th floor. They go up the stairs, they're on floor 8. They try and go up further, they're on 8 again. They try and go down, they're on 8 again. They try and jump out the window. Oh, they're just right back in the room with the window they tried to jump out. Go through the ceiling, they come up to the floor. It reminds you of that Stephen King film, Room 1408, and it gives you this really cool claustrophobic sense, and it really does feel like there's stakes involved. And then they're stuck in there for a long time. They don't figure out how to get off of floor 8. So now they're running out of food, they're running out of water. And because of this, the devil is taunting them. And now you've got members of the party starting to turn on one another. And it's starting to become like John Carpenter's The Thing. Claustrophobia, team members driven mad, who knows who you can trust. It's honestly brilliant to marry these two stories together and create your own story out of it. I mean, at this point, I am thoroughly enjoying the show. This 2 to 3 episode mini arc is the best the show gets. And of course, the Gun Devil world building episode, which leads into this. And at this point, the stakes are raised so high, you genuinely wonder how are they going to get out of it. Frankly, how they get out of it is brilliant. Denji decides, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to attack this thing. I know I can't kill it, and I'm just going to attack it for so long until it decides it can't take the pain anymore. It just lets us out. And then you see him fight and struggle for 3 days of just hacking and slogging, while all the meanwhile his team members are watching for 3 days, getting minimal sleep, having no food, running out of cigarettes, no water. And they just have to sit there and wait for an agonizing 72 hours while homeboy is just chopping away at this demon of existential fear, the infinity demon, until it just lets him out. It can't take it anymore. It was gripping. And from there on, the pacing sucks. I mean, certain characters are killed, but there is no emotional impact because we haven't really gotten to know these characters. We haven't spent enough time being emotionally involved with these characters. So when they die, it's like, yeah, and we barely knew them. I mean, I know they want that emotional payoff of a character death, but they're not going to get it because it's been paced in a way where we don't know these characters. We don't care about them. And then a training arc starts. Now, if you know anything about shonen, training arcs, they can be really good or really boring. And this one starts out, pretty impressive. Denji and Power have to train with who is known as the best devil hunter in the biz. And he is just bodying them. No matter what strategy they come up with, no matter what they try, he wins every time. He kills them, puts them on the brink of death, then brings them back, only to do it over and over. And the episode ends with Denji and Power not really having learned how to defeat him. So, when the show picks back up next week, at least a regular person who has a concept of good writing would think, okay, now we're going to learn how they defeat him, what they're going to do. We're going to get to see some ingenuity and maybe some character development. Nope. Next episode opens and they beat him. He's like, wow, you guys did good. We don't need to train together anymore. Way to go. Like, okay. What? We never see how they got good enough. We never see what they learned. The show just tells us, yeah, they're good now. Isn't that awesome? Well, no, that's not how shows work. The basic tenet of storytelling in film or TV is show, don't tell. You completely missed the concept of how you're supposed to show improvement in a training arc of all things. Then it goes to the final arc, which is another infiltration, and it introduces us to a bunch of brand new characters that's going to be the new team. For like 30 seconds, then we don't see them again the entire rest of the episode. Okay, well that's great. 30 seconds of 5 new dudes who are supposed to be on our new team, but I guess they haven't left any sort of particular mark, even though they all have these cool, interesting powers. Whatever. Maybe we'll come back to them in the next episode, which is the last episode of the season. Maybe they'll flesh them out then. Nope, they're not even in it. Like, you set up this new team, you give us 30 seconds in one episode, cut to the next episode, they're not in it at all, and now we have to wait an entire season to come back to the show. Is anyone even going to remember these characters existed? I mean, at this point, they're not even characters. They're just visual accessories. I guess one was kind of memorable because his head turns into a shark and you just see him go into Chowtown on zombies. But again, I just remember that cool moment. I'm not remembering a character. I don't even know his name. Okay, well, I do know his name. Again, friend, manga. But if I was a regular viewer who hadn't read the manga and have a friend that was able to give me all this, I wouldn't know this character's name. Do you get what I'm starting to say when I say the pacing is fucked? And then, okay, I've got one more thing to rant about when it comes to the writing. Then we'll get to the next category. I know, we've been here a minute. Bear with me. I have to say this. The final fight with the Katana Devil is on a moving train. Can you think of any more of a classic setting? The old cowboy movies, you know, they fight on top of a moving train. The new Brad Pitt movie, Bullet Train, literally about a train filled with assassins. Spider-Man vs. Doc Ock and Spider-Man 2, arguably the greatest superhero film ever made. The big moment that everyone remembers is the train scene, the train fight. Now sit back and ask yourself, why do train fights, why do train scenes in action media work? Well, I will tell you from a writing perspective. Train fights work because there's nowhere to run and the danger is ever present. You are literally backed into a corner with only one way out, to face whatever obstacle is coming your way. If you fall off the train, you're dead. You can't run away. There's nowhere to run. You're in or on a train. The excitement comes from the claustrophobia and the lack of mobility for when the hero that is in that situation needs to face their adversary or the catastrophic event that is coming head on. There is no running away. There's only forward momentum, both physically and metaphorically. And it is a classic scenario. One that does not work here at all. And let me tell you why. We've already seen Denji and the Katana Man and what they can do to each other, and we've seen their power levels. They've been throwing each other through buildings, they've been getting limbs chopped off, and they get back up to fight. So now the stakes of being on a moving train are completely removed. If they fall off the train, well, they're not going to die, they're just going to get back up and continue fighting in the street. The use of this classic action set piece that's normally meant to elevate the characters and the danger and put them in a spot where if they don't do things exactly right, there's no way they can survive. It just doesn't work here when we know that no matter what happens to this train, they would survive and be alright. It doesn't need to be here for any other reason other than so the show can say, remember the classic train setting? We do that too. Okay, but having it for the sake of having it when it doesn't actually add anything to the stakes or the story or the characters. Okay, so you have a train scene. It would have been just as effective to put a Thomas the Tank Engine scene in there. It'd still be a train scene that adds nothing. Alright. I am done ranting about the writing, so if any of you that did love the show are still with me, first of all, congratulations. I appreciate you and how you're able to handle those with a different opinion than yourself. And just so you know, it is still cool to like the show. This is not my way of trying to convince you not to like it. It's okay to like things that are bad. I love things that are bad too. I love The Happening. I love the old 90s Dungeons & Dragons movie. I even love the movie Street Fighter, The Legend of Chun-Li. The thing is, it's okay to like things that are bad as long as you can acknowledge that they are bad. And writing-wise, yeah, Chainsaw Man is pretty bad. With that being said, let's move on to animation and designs. Don't worry, this section will be a whole lot shorter. Mainly because, frankly, I don't have a lot to say about it. Now, I have seen a lot of talk about people say, oh, it's the best animation they've ever seen. Okay, nah, that's way too much credit. All animation nowadays, 98% of the time, is good animation. When you've got Demon Slayer, when you've got Bleach, 1,000 Year Blood War, when you've got any movie done by Comics Wave Studios, like, good animation's kind of par for the course with where we're at technologically. In fact, everything I just listed is better animated than Chainsaw Man. But Chainsaw Man still visually is great, and I think that's worth acknowledging. Definitely doesn't deserve to be called the best, but still you can look at and go, damn, that's pretty. The same can be said for the character designs. The character design for Chainsaw Man himself is unique enough, and honestly, also for Bat Devil and Katana Devil and that weird long titty vagina tail devil that was in love with Bat Devil. Like, they all look really cool. But not just the devil designs. Take the regular characters as well. Aki, Power. Here's how I gauge an anime if a simple character is designed well. Can you go to a convention, see that simple character in cosplay, and still just pick them out? If I go to a con and I see someone in a blue suit, katana, and top knot, yeah, a lot of people own blue suits, but I know that's Aki. If I go to a con and I see somebody with either a giant hammer or some sort of blood weapon, blonde hair, fangs, and then just shirt, pants, and tie, I'm gonna know that's an attempt to be Power. You don't have to go the Tetsuya Nomura way of making your characters just over the top and bombastic visually to make them be impressive characters. There is a beauty in simple character design. One of the most recognizable characters in all of anime is L from Death Note. That's just shaggy hair, jeans, and a white sweater. It's literally baby's first cosplay if you're throwing something together for a con that you just found out about a day in advance. So yeah, I do think most characters are designed very well despite some of them being simple. That simplicity works and is very nicely juxtaposed to the almost overcomplication without going too gaudy on the devils themselves. Now, if you're still with me, I promise you, we're almost done. 2 categories left. Music and story. Music also is not going to be very long because, frankly, it's nearly perfect. I mean, I can give this show a lot of criticisms, but the music department is not one of them. Not just in the opening and the endings either. The background music. Have you ever watched a movie or an anime and sometimes the background music is too loud, or it's not loud enough, it's overpowering, or you can barely hear it, so you're not getting the right sense of emotions, or you're just getting annoyed because you're struggling to turn the TV down so you don't wake someone up because it's 2 a.m. and you don't want them to know you're watching anime at 2 a.m. We've all been there. Chainsaw Man, the mixing and mastering is about perfect, just like the music. In the action scenes, despite what I think of the choreography and cinematography of the action films themselves, the music that's happening during them is great, and it fits the mood, and it fits the vibe. And then maybe cut to one of the more slow, soft scenes, and you've got like just these slow strings on a guitar plucking away, and that's all you get, so it really sinks in the emotions. And then we can talk about the openings and the endings. The opening is a bop. I mean, it is probably the best bassline groove I've heard in a Japanese product since City Escape in Sonic Adventure 2. Like, the bass goes hard. And then for every single ending to be a different song, and all of them to hit, I mean, batting 1,000, 12 for 12, that's pretty impressive. So yeah, the music is just flat out top notch. Good work, Chainsaw Man, I'll give you that. Last but not least, we have the category of story. And you may be asking me, didn't you already cover this with writing? Well, no, they are different. Let me explain. Story is just a collection of events, the beginning, middle, and end. Writing is the explanation of those events in a cohesive manner to keep us, the viewer, engaged in the story. So while I did say the writing in this show was awful, the story really isn't. Now, is it the most original story? No, not really. I mean, I already drew the comparisons to No Gun's Life, and on top of that, we could draw comparisons elsewhere as well. Monster joins a group of government-funded monster hunters to keep other monsters at bay, but is kept on a short leash and is told, if you do good work, you'll be rewarded. If you step out of line, we will dispose of you. Did I just describe Chainsaw Man or Hellboy? You tell me. So yeah, we've seen this before. Does it add original ideas here and there? Well, none that I can really think of. Demons or monsters going against their own kind and forming contracts with humans, that way they can hunt said demons and monsters. I mean, we've seen stuff like that before. However, the story is really able to shine when it finds a way to combine all those existing stories we've seen before in a way that makes it feel original, like it's something we haven't seen before. And one could make the argument that that's originality in and of itself. I mean, if someone wants to argue that Kingdom Hearts is original because it takes the stories of Final Fantasy and the stories of Disney and finds a way to combine them into an entire new story, then why should Chainsaw Man be any different for combining Stephen King and John Carpenter, or Hellboy and No Guns Life? I mean, even the creator himself went on to talk about how he was very much influenced by Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Big Lebowski, and Eric Cartman, of all people, for the inspiration for Power, which is kind of hilarious. No, I think for this particular anime, the originality is the author having the presence of mind of knowing what to pull from for inspiration and how to put them together. There was, of course, a period of time where someone had eaten chicken and someone had eaten green beans, but they'd never put them on a plate together before, so it was an original idea to serve chicken and green beans together. That's kind of what's being done here. So yes, I did think I was on the fence about whether or not I considered this show original. I mean, there are still shonen tropes we've seen 1,000 times. Sometimes there's even tropes from other films and movies we've seen 1,000 times. But I do think that the way it's all mixed together is processed in a package that we can consider original. Or at least original enough for what it is, and not claim that it's a direct copycat of something else. So all in all, did I enjoy this anime? I did when it was enjoyable, and I didn't when the flaws were treating me like they were Denji's foot and I was Aki's ballsack. I mean, the choreography was weak, but the concept of someone just wildly swinging their arms mosh pit style with chainsaws is kind of fun. The writing was atrocious 75% of the time, but the 25% of the time when it was good enough to make me think, man, this could be an anime of the year. I guess what it comes down to is, I did really want to love this show, but I don't. I don't even really like the show. It's definitely a step above tolerable. I more than tolerate it. So I guess that comes down to a resounding, it's alright. Yeah, hours of writing this script and recording this video and editing and thumbnail making just for 2 syllables. It's alright. I mean, if I had to give it a number, I'd say it comes in at 6 nameless public safety officers killed in cold blood out of 10. But that being said, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Am I way off base here? Do you love this anime? Do you agree and think that it was overhyped trash? Let me know your thoughts and if I'm really the elitist snob that everyone seems to think I am. And also, please subscribe to the channel. I've really been working hard to grow it, so your subscription would mean the world to me. And follow me on Twitter at BoltTheWord, where you can tell me my opinions are trash. Because this has been Words of Paradise.